Okay.
We've got additional information, but I'll put it.
Where are we going to put Alan in?
Alan, so he will come in between, he can speak, you can invite him to speak on these two topics, the
Yep.
Horizons point of view.
Yep.
Do you want me to do a note?
Yep. Okay, 2 o'clock. So I welcome you all to this meeting of the Whanganui Rural Community Board. And so I'd like to start by asking Judd to present a karakia.
Certainly. Kia ora tātou, karakia timitanga. Kia uru mai, aho ora, aho kaha, aho maia, ki runga, ki raro, ki waho, rere, hau pai Māori e. Fill me with vitality, strength, bravery, above and below, inwards and outwards. Let the wind blow, peace be upon you all. Kia ora tātou.
Thank you, Judd. Item 2, do we have any apologies?
I'll have got an appointment at 4 o'clock, so if you're running late or early,
Yep.
then
Okay.
I have to go about 45.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Item 3, declarations of interest. Michael.
For the full, the Fordale Hall,
Thank you, Michael. Thanks, Mike.
for the Fordale Hall, being a trustee, I'll have to stand
Okay.
back.
Yep. Bill and I might be in that category as well, with the application for funding for the Fordale Hall. Michael, Bill and I are all trustees of the committee which oversees all the halls. And obviously the the earthquake strengthening is it's quite a big job, so there is a potential conflict of interest there. Peter?
If you're going to declare a conflict of interest, have we then got a quorum?
I think so. We need 4 for a quorum. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Including Peter and Ross.
5.
Yeah, only if it's unanimous.
Right. Oh well. Okay.
Not that I oppose to be a
I think
that is a point.
yes, yes it is. Okay, well, I might have to.
Yeah, if I was you, I'd just not declare an interest.
If it becomes a problem, I might have to seek Anna's advice.
Just to add that we can always declare an interest and still vote. It's elected members' choice whether they choose to withdraw from the table or whether they choose to simply just declare it and then feel that they're further enough away that they're okay to vote. Okay. So when we get to that item, if you push your chairs away from the table, that'll indicate that you don't want to vote in that item. And then we will see if we have quorum or not. Still quorum, but we just need to make sure that if you withdraw from an item, that essentially means that we need to have enough voting bodies still sitting at the table.
Okay.
Bill was here before.
He's coming.
Yeah, but he's also declaring.
He's completed it.
Yes.
Bill's had to duck out. He'll be back very soon. Anyone else want to comment? Okay. Well, we'll leave it there and see how the discussion goes, and if necessary, we'll get Anna's advice at the time if required. So item 4 is a confirmation of the minutes of our meeting on the 17th. Can I have a mover? Yes. Judd? Thank you. And seconded by Peter. So we have the recommendation that the minutes of the Rural Community Board committee meeting held on the 17th of April are confirmed as a true and correct record. Any discussion? So I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? It's carried. Thank you. So item 5, public forum, we haven't got anything listed for that. Oh, okay, yes. Under additional information, we've got, oh, okay. The following information is tabled. Oh yes, we've got the Pix 2, we've got an update on the earthquake strengthening for the Fordell Hall. And there's also some additional information on the rural security camera update report. There's a problem there. Graham Palamountain is not well, so he's unable to give us a report in person. And I think you've all been circulated the additional information for both those items. Oh, okay, so we need a mover and a second for that,
I'll
please.
move that we accept that information.
So we've got Grant and Ross. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. So then we've got item 6. The Rural Community Grant Fund, an application from the Hunting and Outdoors Club of Whanganui, and they've got a couple of people here to talk to their submission. So, would you like to present anything?
Good afternoon. My name's David Newell. I'm the treasurer of the Whanganui Hunting and Outdoors Club. We're an incorporated society and registered.
I can do, and otherwise we won't hear you on camera.
We're also a charitable organisation registered with the society. For the past 70 odd years, we've also managed the deer park up in Peach Street. We've supplied food, looked after the animals' welfare, done fencing, and basically solely looked after that on behalf of the people of Whanganui. We've never asked for anything in return until now. So we've got a club rooms that have been situated next to the netball courts for the last 50 years.
Last year, at least.
Yeah, at least 50 years. And a couple of years ago we re-roofed half of the roof, and we've come across that the rest of the building needs to be roofed as well. We have some funds in our savings account, and we're looking for a grant so that we can re-roof the roof without depleting all of our equity in the bank account. So if anybody has any questions?
Thank you, David. Do we have any questions for David and Ian? Grant?
Do you actually own the building as
Yes,
a society? Yep.
yes.
And the land, or?
No, the land is council land. We lease it from the council.
I hope that's not expensive.
No, the council do zero rate house in return for the work we do at the deer park.
However, we still pay a lease of about $400 a year.
Okay, thank you.
So no further questions or comment?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, Jim,
Yes.
sorry.
Kia ora, thank you for your presentation. We had a deer stalkers group in here, was it just recent? Was you?
It was David, yes.
Well, is this a return or?
Yes, I think you were the one who said
Yes.
you have some funds that can assist the community projects.
That's right, so you're here to claim those funds.
Yeah.
Last time you weren't? You didn't
No,
put
we were
anything
just-
in, you just gave a presentation.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
just
right,
to
yeah.
say that we're out there, and if being a rural community, if you have any pest problems or anything on people's farms or
course,
that, we can assist. Just to let you know.
You can assist with pet problems.
Yes.
Yes.
Deer eradication?
Yes.
Yep.
I'll have to talk to you. Yep.
Okay.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
What about rabbits?
Yes.
Yep, okay, that's good to know, thank you. So what's the process here? Do we,
more
and other,
questions?
sometimes we've,
Got more
one
questions?
more oh,
question.
sorry, Ross.
Oh, and the two other gentlemen. I don't know the order.
I think it's just you, Ross.
Oh, it's rare that I get to go first. Gentlemen, just for the benefit of those and for the record, you oversee the Peat Park Deer Sanctuary for over 70 years.
Yes.
That definitely fits the supportive community. What does it mean by overseeing? I don't know how many deer there are, when they appear, when they disappear, if they have babies or fawns. What does it you actually do?
We manage the numbers. We get them TB tested to make sure that they're not infected. We check the fencing to make sure the fences are secure. If the grass is getting too low because there's not enough deer in there, we'll go inside the boundary and mow it. If there's too many deer in there, we will cull.
You cull them.
We cull.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Where does the meat go?
Normally gets donated to the people who supply the feed for us.
Oh, great. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. So I think the process will carry out now is that if you would leave the room perhaps, and the board will discuss the issue and then vote,
Thank you.
and we'll be in touch pretty well immediately as to the result. That's the process we've used in other situations like this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so can we have a mover and a seconder for this recommendation, please, that the Whanganui Rural Community Board approve $1,000 in funding from the grant fund for the Hunting and Outdoors Club? So
I'll move.
Peter's moving and Judd's seconding. So do we have any discussion?
This ties in really well with the Horizons issue of not being able to maintain the pest eradication really well. There'd be a few I've had a few of my neighbours complain, talk about it, ask what's happening with the Horizons pest, and from our last meeting with Horizons we just got there wasn't enough funding or was short. So this could probably this will certainly excite my neighbours.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. Thank you, Judd. Peter?
On that topic of Horizons, you'll be able to ask him in a minute.
Yes,
Fabulous.
yes. Ross?
Thank you, Chair. It meets all the requirements as described, and a 70-year history in our community. And I've just learned some important information about their role. There's nothing that conflicts, and I will be happy to support this.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's no further comments, then I'll put the motion that we approve the $1,000 in funding for the Hunting and Outdoors Club. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against? That's carried. Yep. Thank you. So now we'll move on to the application to our fund from the Fordell Hall Committee. Do we, Carol? Thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you very much for inviting me here today. I'm Carol Loader, and I am the chairperson for the Whanganui Community Hall Committee. I've lived in Whanganui for nearly 20 years and have been involved with the Community Hall for 8 years, but been on committee for the last 4. So I'll just give you a little bit of background about it, just in case you aren't familiar with us. The Whanganui Community Hall is a cherished cornerstone of our community, standing strong since 1926. Whanganui was a real hub in the 1900s, with the railway station standing close to where the hall is now, hence the name Station Road, where it sits. The railway buildings are long gone, but happily the hall remains. To quote from the recent article in the New Zealand Herald, this historic hall is at a critical juncture, meeting only 15% of the new building standard. The aim is to get it to 67%, which meets the building standard, interestingly, not 100% like I thought, but there you go. As you may be aware, more than $200,000 is needed to strengthen and revamp the hall, with the Rural Halls Trust asking the Whanganui District Council for $85,000 towards the $228,000 needed. Despite our best efforts, there does remain a shortfall. Our committee has dedicated all of our meagre savings to this project, but given COVID and the cancellations that happened after that and the lack of hall booking since, our savings are quite meagre. So we've recently started a Give a Little page asking the local community and hall users for donations. These contributions make a real difference. By receiving donations, we're not just preserving an historic building, we're ensuring Whanganui Hall remains a vibrant community hub for regular school events, weekly playgroup sessions, milestone birthdays, rural women's functions, and social gatherings, just to name a few things. As a side note, Whanganui School use the hall on a really regular basis. They don't have a hall of their own, so the children walk down to the hall to attend their school assemblies, formal dancing practices, production rehearsals, shows, prize givings. The hall is a real asset to the school, and we've relied on their hireage to keep our finances going. I also ran the playgroup for many years there as well, and it was a real neat place for really isolated rural mums to be able to network and have support, especially down Whangamahu Valley. They would come up to us. It was really neat. So the generosity of these donors, along with the potential $1,000 received from the Whanganui Rural Community Board, will directly impact all those who rely on the hall, fostering stronger community, and together we can bring this historic hall up to modern standards and ensure it serves future generations. So the use of the funds, as I've said earlier, our committee has dedicated all of our savings to this project, yet there's 2 crucial needs that remain. One being the ceiling insulation, which is essential for warmth and comfort. So initially when the job was priced, the engineers didn't think, and the builders didn't think, that we could put insulation in the ceiling because it was very narrow, but after they removed the old ceiling they realised that yes, actually they could. So that was where our unexpected expenses come from. We've been quoted $7,174 for ceiling insulation. That sounds like a lot, but it is a big haul too. And number 2, additional power points are needed for accessibility and functionality. Currently there are only 2 and they're up by the stage, and we need a couple across the other side, which we've been quoted $1,200 for that. Our Give a Little page is currently at $1,200. Thank you for your time today and for your consideration of our application.
Thank you, Carol. Do we have any questions? Or input? Bill, would you like to add to anything that you're a representative from the Whanganui community? Have you got anything you would like to add to that?
I think it's best that I don't. I see this sort of conflict of interest, and I think it's best that I don't vote and I don't contribute anything to the discussion.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. Okay, well, if we have no further questions, oh, Peter.
Yes, and Ross.
Yep.
You first.
Thank you for your presentation. I know it's not an easy place to come speak, but the photo that you're presenting here, it's not an up-to-date photo, is it? Because it's not the state of the hall at the moment.
If you turn to the side where there are three pictures like this, that was our last update, which was maybe the end of last week. So you can see that the insulation has been done along the sides of the building, but
Yep.
nothing on the top, but the ceiling cavity is open. So that's the latest picture that we've received from the project manager.
Okay, so it looks like it needs insulating straight away.
Yes.
Yeah, and the total price is $7,000, and this is $1,000 of it. So how's that going to work?
We are about halfway there with the savings that we have, the Give a Little page, and if we are successful today with our $1,000, and then we're not too sure how we're going to get the rest of it. However, I believe that we have got a little bit of time before we need to pay the builders to do that, because they understand the position that we're in. So we're going to be okay to carry on
To
with
start?
it. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ross?
Thank you, Chair. This is just for my own education clarification. I very much do understand how important a community hall is to rural communities and the different functions and purposes they're used for. In your application, you mentioned that the Ministry of for playgroups, Ministry of Education guidelines are that a minimum of 16 degrees is required for the little ones to be in there. Is that 16 degrees, I sound like I'm getting into the minutiae, is the 16 degrees achievable with insulation, or does it mean you will need to provide heating as well?
We already have heating in the hall. Yes, it is achievable. 16 degrees is actually the summer temperature. In winter, they expect 18 degrees, which is a little bit harder. However, in the past, we've been able to reach 13 or 14 degrees with the heating that we have in there. So with the insulation, I do believe that it's going to be very easy for us to get to the 16 or 18 degrees, yes.
So at the moment, the little ones aren't in there.
No, we can't run it at the moment.
You can't? Okay.
No, not in the term 2 and term 3 times, because it's too cold in the hall. It's 10 degrees when we walk in there, and it's very hard to get up to 14. It costs too much. So playgroup doesn't run term 2 and term 3 in the hall. We have to go elsewhere. So we usually meet in different places and go around, parks and things like that. It's a real shame. Previously, we had playgroup at the preschool, so it wasn't a problem, but now the preschool runs every day of the week. It didn't before that. Sorry, long backstory. And that's why we're now at the hall. But term 1 and term 4, it's warm enough, so we can hold it there. But we are looking forward to when it is reopened and it's warm and comfortable, we'll be able to do it all year round, yes.
Thank you for
Does
that.
that answer your question? Sorry, I told you a long story.
No, you answered it beautifully, actually. Thank you.
Okay.
When you're operating for those education type situations, is there any income associated with that?
Yes, we do receive some funding from the Ministry of Education, and we have put that, in the past, we've put that funding towards the heating, because about a third of the heaters didn't work, so we were able to replace them. And we also put fans on the ceiling, because it's so high, it's like in here, to push the hot air down. So the Ministry have been quite kind to us in the past, and I'm thinking that perhaps I will approach them for a little bit of our shortfall as well, to see if they'll allow me to use some of our funding for that as a special grant. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, it certainly sounds like you're doing absolutely everything you can
We're trying.
to get this project
Thank you.
completed.
Do you have any community fundraising groups active?
Not
Firewood, sheep manure, all those type of things?
Not currently.
Could
Not
be
currently.
something to look at.
We have in the past,
Yep.
but we don't have anything at the moment. It's a really busy time, so yeah.
Otherwise, we could
just-
direct people out to you,
Yeah, absolutely.
potential buyers.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Carol. We'll we'll be putting the motion and the board will discuss and vote, and we shall let you know the result. It'll only be a matter of minutes, so. Thank you. So I presume you're all aware of the situation, how the Fordell Hall was at 27% or something of its earthquake requirement, and Rick White actually is being the main worker. He went out and found 40,000 from the Four Regions Trust, and that combined with the Rural Halls Trust being very diligent with its savings over the 10 or so years that it's been in existence, it meant that the 225,000 that Carol mentioned, the bulk of it has actually been available, which is how we've been able to get on and do this project. We did apply to council for, as part of the long-term plan process, for some funding towards it, and at the workshop I was at, we came within one vote of getting another 40,000, but it didn't happen. So that's the background as to why we are where we are, and my understanding is that the project is going very well. So I think we're at the stage where I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that our board approves $1,000 in funding from the Rural Community Grant Fund to the Fordell Hall Committee.
Happy to move, Mr. Chair.
So Grant's move and Peter's going to second. So do we have any further discussion? Oh, what are we going to do about the voting? I think at this stage, Bill, Michael and I being on the committee that is overseeing the funding for the whole thing, we might, at this stage, we will not vote.
Can I just query that? Because although you're on the Rural Trust Board and you're involved in the earthquake strengthening, this is separate. It's purely for the insulation. So there is, to me, there is no obvious conflict and there is no pecuniary advantage on any level.
No.
So I personally, I don't have a conflict for anyone who wishes to vote. I don't see it. Same topic, but different matters. The building is the
I think
topic.
we are being a little bit, I think we're being a bit overcautious, but I think what we'll do is we'll put, we've got a mover and a seconder, and it's, so the three of us at this stage will not vote. Okay. If it doesn't pass, then I'll seek advice, and we might be able to change something, but we'll just play it very cautious at this stage. So so all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? So we have a.
Put your hand up for the count.
There's your vote. There's your vote. 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have a quorum voting in favour, so there's no issue.
Well done.
So the recommendation is approved. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is the camera situations. And as I mentioned before, Graham was going to speak to this and can't. So if I can just find the right place. So we're on to item 6.3 and 6.4, which we'll sort of deal with together. Oh, no, we won't. No, we've got to, we've got item 6.4. Can we do that one first? Is that all right? No, we've got a specific request. Yeah, so item 6.4, we've got a specific request from the, for our fund to cover the maintenance cost of the Tokomaru East Road security camera. This group were hoping that we would assist with the installation of it, but we weren't able to make that work. So hence we've got this application for them to be included in our grant fund covering the maintenance. So the recommendation's up there that the Whanganui Rural Community Board support the maintenance of the Tokomaru East Group security camera. So I'll ask for, we'll get a mover and a seconder for that. Oh no, I'm going to move that, yes. Yeah, so I'm going to move that. And so we just need a seconder. Thank you, Brian. Oh. Well, you're down to one wing, I see. So any questions or discussion on this topic? Peter?
Yeah, and the question is, how much is it going to cost? And is it, well, two questions. How much is it going to cost per year? And is it for every, now, continuously year in, year out now?
So the way this works is we'll put it in with the other, this is number 14, isn't it, Demelza?
Yep.
So this will make 14 cameras, which we're now covering the maintenance cost of. And this comes up every year. So with discussions with Graham Mountain, we will be discussing every year as to whether our grant fund is going to be available for maintaining all these cameras. This is an extremely efficient way of maintaining them all, because Graham just does it when he's passing. And also these cameras, a lot of them have servicing quite big communities, and if there was going to be a $300 or $400 maintenance cost every year, which they were paying, then they'd be looking at perhaps getting a small contribution from up to about 20 people. So it's a very efficient means of keeping all these cameras operating, and they're not much use if they really do need one or two visits a year to keep them functioning at their best.
I was just looking at the extra between what the new information and the old information, so it's $500 extra a year.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Does the Whanganui Rural Community Board, does that fund the maintenance of the cameras totally, or does the communities add something to it?
No, my understanding is that this 3,500 that Graham's got here includes, we're paying for all the maintenance for all the cameras.
Every year?
Every year. It's only it's 3,500 for the 14 cameras.
No.
Oh, okay. It's 3,000, and the extra 500 will be. It will cost an extra $500 to include the Tokomaru East one.
Can I get clarification? Because the way I'm reading this is 3,000 for 13 cameras, 3,500 for Tokomato East Road. That to me is 6,500. So if I'm reading that correctly, which is interesting that it's 3.5 for one camera and it's 3.
Oh, no, you're not reading it correctly, no.
That's what the email says.
Yeah,
Including the addition of.
So that,
yes,
should
by
that
adding Tokomaru East, it goes from 3,000 to 3,500.
should the recommendation not have a total figure budgeted? Somewhere in there should be to the amount of.
Okay, and shall we add an
Up to the
additional
amount
cost of $500?
3,500? Would that be?
No, an option there might be at the additional cost of $500.
If all 14 cameras or 13 cameras were $500, you'd be looking at $7,000. So this extra camera is costing twice as much to upkeep as every other camera.
There's also the issue of the Mangamahu camera, which costs $800 individually.
Yeah.
Because he has to get a cherry picker out there to deal with that one.
Yeah.
So it's a package deal in reality.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yes, well, that's where it's getting confusing. The total cost that our fund will be contributing to maintain all 14 cameras will be $3,500 for the year.
Also worthy of note, Mr. Chair, is there's actually 18 cameras on this list.
Yeah, it'll make 19 cameras total.
Right. Well, the important figure is, for all of the important figure is that we are committing, what we are committing to today is 3,500 from our grant fund for the maintenance of all the cameras listed.
Yeah.
Are we happy with that?
Yep.
Yes. Can I ask a supplementary question?
Certainly.
How much money have we got? We're giving it away, but if we're over the amount that we have,
Exactly. Do you want the exact
oh, approximately, like if we've got, $100,000 and we've spent 30,
We
we've
have
got plenty.
approximately,
You've only spent 4,000, maybe 800 or 200.
we have approximately 10,000 left.
Okay.
And that is an important figure because when Tim comes along later in the
Yes.
agenda, we've got some plans for some of that.
Well, we've got plans.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So the board agrees to add the Tokomaru East camera to the master list of 14 cameras with Town and Country TV. And will maintain.
Yep, that's it.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The board now maintains the cost of all these of the 14 cameras at 3,000, whatever it is. In this day and age, shouldn't we look at a user pay something, even if it's a slight token from each of those? Because at the end of the day, the board's just funding cameras for the rural community. Shouldn't the rural community have some buy-in? No? Yes?
Grant, would you like to respond to that?
The communities as such has probably contributed of the order of 80 or 90% of the capital cost at this stage. So we considered at the time that it was most efficient for us to pay as a group. The only thing that we have to be wary of is probably in the next few years that we're probably looking at quite a large upgrade of this system, of all the cameras. They're all getting of an age where they probably need to be upgraded, in which case I would envisage at that point we would go back to the communities. But for this general maintenance, and it is, you can say it's very basic maintenance.
Yeah.
It's cleaning, just checking that it's operating, spray a little bit of spider spray so to maintain the image. But somebody has to climb up there and do it every year. And Graham does it as he's going past in general.
But it's starting a precedent that we're covering those costs every time.
At that level,
Right.
when it becomes new equipment
Yes.
and such things, I
Well,
think at that
open the
stage
conversation again.
we then need to go back to the communities as such, or come up with a slightly different solution.
Excellent, thank you. I was just looking at something moving forward, going forward into the future. How are we going to keep
I
funding?
don't know whether other people have similar
Ross,
views.
would you like to?
A little bit lost. On the document in front of me, I've got about 18 cameras or so, if I'm counting right. But down the bottom, it talks about Wiratoa Lakes, and it says we have had 2 meetings with the community, but still no advance. So is that telling me that they're seeking a camera, but they haven't got one yet?
No, I'm not. This list is. This is just the list that Graham is actually tidying up every time he goes past. So I don't know. I don't have an explanation as to why. These must. Some of these cameras, it looks like we're not actually. That are listed here, it looks like we're not actually doing, Graham's not actually doing anything to them.
Okay.
Oh, on the contrary, I think he's got them on his list, but we, as a board, have only funded some, but we have, whether it's officially or whatever, we have adopted them, or Graham has adopted them as part of the group.
Okay,
maintenance
so we're
purposes.
actually paying for the whole list.
I would say so, yes.
We're only paying for 13 of what's on the list, not the whole list.
So if we're paying for 13,
14 now.
oh, it'd be 14 now.
I think we contributed to the capital of 13.
Oh, that's quite right.
Whereas
Yes,
there is another 4 or 5 that we didn't contribute to,
Yes.
but have been adopted as part of the maintenance list, because they are community cameras, even though we didn't pay any money. So those other 4 or 5 cameras are in a very similar scenario to the Tokomaru East, where
So, yes, Anna, you might be able to straighten things out for us here.
Can I ask whether the 14 should be increased to reflect the cameras on this list, or would that not be correct? So are we maintaining and cleaning all the cameras on this list? Okay. So at the moment it's unclear.
I think it's safe to assume that we are, given
Okay.
he's reporting this way.
Okay, so I would suggest that we put 18, if that's the number on this list that's provided to us, that is labelled Whanganui Rural Camera System, Cleaning and Maintenance Schedule. It would be safe to assume, I would think, that the cameras on here would be included in the figure that we've been advised. Should that not be the case, then we can make a change at a future meeting. It's up to the board to decide.
I'd be happy to have that figure changed to 18. I think what is clear, though, is that this recommendation is only is allocating $3,500, including GST, for this project. So should any more money be required? Oh, yes, that's wrong. Yes, it should be plus GST. So should any further funds be required for this project, it will have to come back to the board.
Yes.
So are we happy with that?
Chair, I think I am, but we don't seem to have our own list. The list that we've got is headed Town and Country. So they are billing us for 17 plus something vague about Wiratoa. So we'll say 18. That's what they're billing us for on their document. But we don't seem to have our own master list that matches theirs. So I think even if we put up 14 or 18, I think an action that might need to come out of this, an action, is that that there be follow-up so that we can confirm that council has its own confirmed list, because we haven't provided one. This is coming from the maintenance company. So that's the action I'd like to see happen, if that's acceptable. Whether it's 14, 17 or 18, I think we should go with this list at this stage, which is 18, and then amend it, as Governor said, perhaps at a later date if we need to. But definitely need our own list to confirm this.
Okay. Grant?
Oh, sorry. Along the same lines, I'd be happy to adopt this list, put it that way, because it is the list that, sure, it has been blurred because of one or two of these cameras were just put in by, often, in one case at least, it was by one person for the community, but they are community cameras. Therefore, it was logical that we take on the maintenance. They are road cameras, therefore they're on our community assets.
Yeah, and I think it needs to say 18 because it says, if I read it, list of 18 cameras which Town and Country TV surveillance solution will maintain.
Yes.
So they're under the impression they're maintaining 18. So the number should match
Yes.
what they're maintaining.
Indeed.
So technically 18 from the list, and then the action should be that we confirm our list.
Yes.
Yeah. No? Come on, Brian.
I think,
Yeah, okay, that was 19.
see, my reading of this document is that we are paying the 3,500 plus GST is covering the maintenance cost of the cameras listed with the boxes that are ticked. So I think probably what Graham's done is there's four cameras on this list which he has installed, but we are not covering the maintenance cost of. So I think the list we have is accurate.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I disagree.
Oh, okay.
Muratara, for example, we definitely did contribute to.
But are we contributing to the maintenance?
I think we are, because these ones, the ones that are not ticked are scheduled for June 24. So they're scheduled for this month. That is why they're not ticked. They're due to be done.
Okay, well, in that case, the 3,500 is covering 18 cameras. And we have the correct list.
Yes.
Okay, problem solved.
I'd be relatively confident.
Yep.
Okay, I will make one point though. The Whanganui camera, there was some other things wrong with that one. We had to replace the hard drive, and it got to, it was an extra $1,500 or something. The cost of that did not come from this fund. The Whanganui community, fortunately it has a fund, so that came from another source. So in terms of getting us, of worrying too much about other more expensive things being required by these cameras and our fund being asked to provide it, that won't necessarily happen. And if it did, we would have to okay it anyway.
Yep.
So there is a precedent for other stuff having to be done to cameras and the communities involved paying for it. Okay, so if we have no, are we ready to, I'll put the motion. Are we ready for that? So I'll put the motion that the board agrees to add the Tokamara East camera to the master list of 18 cameras with Town and Country TV, and Town and Country TV and surveillance solutions will maintain for 3,500 plus GST for the Oh, no, that doesn't quite make sense, does it? For the board agrees. Maintain, yes, no, that's all right. So I put that motion. So are we all in favour?
Aye.
Against? Okay, so that's carried. Thank you.
No, there wasn't. Oh, no, sorry.
No, we're done. We've committed 3,500 of our fund for 18, the maintenance, the basic maintenance of 18 cameras. Now 19. Yes.
Excuse me, Chair. Is it possible to put item 6.6 in front of 6.5? Because I would like to vote on that. And,
Oh, you've got a. What's the time?
whereas, and I hope to not waste the previous one's time.
Well, we were going to bring Alan in at some point about
I
now
can
too.
miss him.
Um,
No trouble at all. I don't mind offending him.
You've got till 4:45. Are you? So you're happy if we just keep an eye on that? We should be okay. So, so Alan got missed off the agenda, but Alan, would you like to give a report now, please, on which one? Oh, okay. Oh, no, sorry, there is one more recommendation that we have to, but it's all right, it's just a bit of housekeeping, Alan. So we have a recommendation that we receive the update regarding Whanganui Rural camera maintenance work. Yes, we'll have to get rid of that one. So we continue to support the maintenance of the, are we going to leave 13 in there? So that we have to change that to 18. Oh, yes, we do, because there's two parts to this. Because there's the 3,500 which we've just discussed, and then there's $800 for the Mangamahu, the camera on the Wiley's Bridge at Mangamahu, and that's another $800. And that's the one I was talking about that we, the hard drive packed it in, so the community paid for a new hard drive. Okay, so we need, I'm happy to move that recommendation. Do we have a seconder, please? Brian, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? It's carried. Thank you. You know, sorry, I'm all got a bit confusing there. Alan, thank you for coming along.
Thank you, Chair.
Now, what do you want to do? Just ask me questions, or do you want me to?
Well,
what do you want me to talk to?
Perhaps you could give us just a quick précis of where you got to with your long-term plan process.
Okay. If I go on too long, just stop me, please. You're in charge of your time. Pleased to be back here. The overall rate increase looks to be about 11.5%, but we await, of course, audit and then the confirmation of the plan at our next council meeting. One of the things that was quite contentious was the intention to move, or suggestion that we move a portion of our, the portions of our investment income to offset to a greater degree the uniform annual general charge, rather than a general rate, which had been the case in the past, and that was rescinded to some extent, so that with that investment income, 35% of it's going to reduce the annual general charge and or uniform annual general charge, and the balance of 70% of that investment income will go toward reducing the general rate take. Specific to the plan, the mapping of the highly productive land in pressure areas around urban areas was successful. So too was the vote to increase or to place funding in place, or put funding in place for the integrated catchment program. There were no changes made to our insurance cover in general with respect to the river management insurances. The plan is, though, to continue to insure for where we were plus inflation and revaluation, but not an increase otherwise. Around freshwater initiatives, 10 kilometres of fencing and 70,000 plants at the lower end of what was consulted on. The use of SLUI reserves to help fund the shortfall from government there was approved. That's for those who aren't aware of the Sustainable Land Use Initiative, of which the Whanganui catchment has been probably the biggest recipient of reserves in the past nearly 20 years it's been running, 15 or so anyway.
And so that's still continuing?
Yes, the SLUI program will continue. It still will be cut back a little bit, it would appear. A number of reasons for that. One is there'll be less uptake from farmers because they've got less reserves themselves to put it. Farmers have less to put into it under the current economic situation because it's a shared program between government, Horizons and the farming, the affected farmers. So we will probably see a little bit of a fallback in that. Not huge though. From Whanganui's perspective, it's probably not overly relevant for the board, but it is for your total community that nothing changes with respect to the where we're sitting with public transport, and any increases for the following year, 2025-26, will go to the annual plan then. That's a bit of a wait and see thing, given where the government sits with its intentions around public transport. Water meters for consent holders will all be paid by the users. Previously, it came out of the science budget. It's now it is now to be 100% paid by the consent holders.
So presumably that means the science budget has had a huge boost.
It's not huge. It's not a lot of money. I can't tell you what the quantum is, but there will.
But $750 for every metre that's a huge increase for the people with meters.
Well, if it's, yeah, it is a big increase for the people that it matters, but it's more, it's probably fair to say that the user is actually going to be paying rather than the general public that will be, or the general constituent that will benefit from the overall science budget. So hopefully that gives us a better outcome.
Alan, on that, just on that thing as well, can you clarify what that is, that metering charge is? Is it just a per metre charge to contribute to the research, or is it to maintain the database, etc., and data collection? My understanding is your second scenario is to maintain the database and the connection and the cost of that metering.
Okay. So you were given detailed costings to justify that.
I can come back to you with more detailed figures on that if you wish. Would you like me to do that? I'll get that back to you.
I know a number of people interested in that.
Yeah. One thing to note around that, of course, is that many of the general public in the consultation period came back to us and said that there should be no charge, but their confusion was they were thinking this was water metering for urban properties, etc. It's got nothing to do with that. It's about consent holding and large takes. And the port, Te Puaha, there was not in the consultation document. The reasons were quite complex, but we have put $1.8 million back into it this year towards co-funding with government, if hopefully that comes through, to keep the process going towards the development of the redevelopment, refurbishing of the South Mole. There will be consultation on that with the Whanganui community later in the year through to the next annual plan. So that program will continue, and that's probably a pretty good thing for Whanganui. The only other significant thing I think for this area is the increase in funding for the Kanarewa Takitaki Biodiversity Fund. That's a contestable fund. There's $100,000 extra gone into that, and you will be, or the district will be pleased to note that Bushy Park will now receive $30,000 a year over and above what it was already getting as a line item, taking its Horizons contribution to Bushy Park to that is not contestable to $50,000 a year, and that's a pretty welcome thing from the Bushy Park Trust, I understand. And there have been some projected reductions in staff that we intended to, gaps we intended to fill, or positions we intended to fill, will not be now filled in order to have achieved a bit of a rate reduction. And that's those staff reductions in the policy area. So it's a bit nebulous to say just how that will impact. We don't really know at this stage, or the very specific around it. So that's a sort of the outcome of our 2 days deliberations in a nutshell as far as Whanganui's concerned. There are other things around other areas, public transport and other areas, etc., but that doesn't. That's not so critical for this area. Bear in mind, of course, that 11.5% rate rise doesn't reflect what an individual will pay. You all know that your own individual rates will be vary incredibly from place to place, and will be affected by that. That's a regional rate rise, and of course you'll have district components of your rate increases or your rates that are not reflected in a neighbouring district, depending on your river and drainage schemes, what public transport you have, and whatever. It's because those are territorially based, the targeted rates there. So the 11.5% overall, the 250,000 constituents we've got, it's a pretty general sort of a figure. I just would like to say to the board though that right through, or from late July through August, we're planning a series of river and drainage scheme meetings through the whole region. There's 34 river and drainage schemes, so it's going to be a pretty busy meeting month for 2 or 3 of us going out to the scheme meetings to fulfil our obligations with respect to taking information to them and seeing what they want and how they want to run their schemes in the future. And your brother will be pretty impressed with that happening, one would hope. He's pretty involved with it. So that's kind of, unless you've got questions, that's kind of in a nutshell where we're at the moment.
So 11.5% increase generally, that's still quite large. Are you actually providing any extra services?
Well, a large part of it, of course, David, is, as I said, will be depending upon where you are. And Palmerston North's new bus service is quite a contributor to that. And of course, that will not impact on you. Because there's this full change to a new contract there with all electric buses, and so there's quite an increase in bus service in Palmerston North, okay, so and that will fall on them. But that still goes into the pot when you look at the overall rate increase.
So you're saying there is extra services being provided?
There will be some
overall for that quite large increase.
Yeah, well, for example, the move to integrate our catchment work across the board will require quite a bit of staff time and management to get that up and running. It'll have long-term benefits, but there is an impact on rate on that. There's an impact on the increases we've given to biodiversity projects, etc., or specifically, say, to places like Te Apiti, Pukaha and Bushy Park Taraparui as individual icon biodiversity spots. So there has been some increase in there. you pretty much got to, that's about where you've got to run to stand still right now, with the cost, increasing costs.
Yeah, well, we've been,
And you've been through that here.
I've kept a bit of an eye on the district council long-term process, so so we had a good understanding of that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Alan. So have we got any questions, please? Judd.
Yes, Alan, thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to revisit, especially with the 11.5 increase in the pest eradication. Is that program going to be have any umpa put into it? Any grunt? Any? Because at the moment, we, you know, as you must know, through the district, there's been an explosion of pests.
Yeah, it was interesting listening to the deer
exactly.
people
We'll
before,
tap is
but
shot.
Horizons focuses on the 4 pest animals it has, which are rooks, possums, wallabies, and rabbits. But
Deer?
No, deer are not in our eradication program, and neither are goats. And yet we're having we are getting a lot of not, I wouldn't say flat, but a lot of concern brought to us about the explosion in deer numbers. We know there's a lot of the sort of lower levels of our native bush being stripped out in places in the Ruahenis and even locally up at
we want to plant now over at Marybank, but we're just getting hammered.
It is,
deer.
but what's of note perhaps is we're just starting a review of our pest management plan, which is due to be begun this year and completed. Might take as long as 10 years to complete that plan, but that's being started, so there will be the opportunity to bring forward your concerns about other pest animals, and they'll be looked at as to whether or not it's appropriate to put them in there or not, and what's affordable.
Wow. I'm a bit staggered over there's nothing on goats or deer. However, it is what it is.
It used to be a national issue, didn't it? And it is of concern, but there's just no money to do, and no impetus on to do any deer work.
Okay. One other one I'd like to bring up is is our waterways. Would there be some enforcement this year of those that like to let loose their cattle in the streams? Because there hasn't been any for forever, has there?
Yeah, you have to fence them now, except for sheep, I believe. But the government has bought, previous government bought its freshwater policy statement forward, and one plan had to respond to that by the middle of next year, the end of next year, and the current government has said no, we're going to hold back on that because of the concern that it is unachievable, the kind of targets that we were looking at of having to bring forward. And so we've got a bit of breathing space there to be able to gather more data and do more work and get the plan right. So there are moves. We're still moving forward on that, but at a slightly slower rate under this current government, which has said you can actually have a bit of breathing space. We actually didn't have the capacity in science or data to do the work that was required under the previous time frame. Right. So that's been spun out a little bit. And if we do that, we'll wind up with a more robust and I think probably more sustainable plan over a longer time, future-proof.
Right. Well, we'd certainly like to see that initiative get some mileage behind it. One other. My final one is the Whanganui River erosion on the riverbanks, especially Puriki Town Bridge or halfway down from Puriki to the Cobham Bridge. It's shocking. It's really dug in. We've taken groups from council down there, Horizons. They give us, once after the long-term plan's out, we'll have a look at it. So I'm just wondering if there's anything being put aside for Whanganui River bank erosion, especially in the city.
No. There are parts of the district that sit under river and drainage schemes and under erosion schemes, but not the riverbank. That's not an Horizons responsibility at this stage, and we do have responsibility around the flood control schemes on the river, but not general erosion and not general vegetation matters there. you'll be interested to know that there is work ongoing. I would hope you're interested to know there's ongoing work around the Putiki flooding area, or Putiki flooding issues, and that's looking to come to some fruition.
Once again,
reasonably
they're
soon,
up on
but
the,
that's been
you know,
20
they're off the river.
20 years
They,
anyway.
they're not
Yeah.
touching the river. Theirs is, the mandate's more for creeks and streams. But the river's of a concern, you know.
Yeah.
That kohanga, I don't know whether anyone's been there for a while, but it's probably about 6 feet away from the bank is eroding from the fences starting to go.
It would be our responsibility if it was under a river and drainage scheme, but it's not.
Righto.
There's the lower Whanganui scheme, the Putiki area. See, that's where we do have some responsibility. The Tipua area, that's where we do have some responsibility, which is pretty much from the Cobham Bridge down to the sea, and that's why we're so involved in the moles and the Tane groin and the south spit and the work on that sort of stuff.
Not a lot of joy there, Alan, but thank you for your answers.
No, you're welcome. But we would, if you have concerns about erosion on the riverbank, we do want to hear about it. So bring it forward to us, because nothing's set in stone of what we will or won't do. We want to be able to do the right things in the right place.
It's eroded one and it goes several feet, you know, 6 feet under the riverbank.
Yep.
And that's just waiting to go. Thank you very much, David.
Okay.
All good?
Thank you, Alan. Yep,
Right.
we might move on now. Thank you very much for taking the trouble to come and speak to us today. The number of issues, I had a number of issues which I'd like to bring up at some stage. So we'll just keep you and David in the loop,
Yeah.
and if we can have one of you at each of our meetings, that'll work really well.
And feel free to send your concerns to either David or I directly, and we'll address them, not necessarily just at your meeting, but in preparation for that. But I'll come back to you on as much detail as you can get on the specific water meter charging thing. I don't know that that's fully worked out yet.
Okay.
How that's going to happen. It's quite confusing as to how they will do the charging.
Very. Thank you very much, Alan. So we'll move on to 6.5. Hopefully we'll get through that in time to do. 6.6 was the one you were interested in, wasn't it, Peter? Tim's ducked out, so we'll try and get these through by. So John, we'll run through your. Thank you for your presentation. It's fantastic.
Thanks, Alan.
Cheerio. Yes, this report's great. So would you you'd like to just give us an overview of it, and then I think it will generate a few questions.
Right, the purpose was obviously to give an update of the rural bins and illegal dumping. I've brought along Ross Hudson, he's a part of the litter team. Whilst most of his work is in urban, he does go out to the rural areas, which a main job is to actually make sure there's access cleared so that the rural bins can actually be picked up and cleaned. If they're not cleared, that creates another problem. Which means more illegal dumping, or seems to attract illegal dumping, or nobody has got anywhere else to put the rubbish, so they just put it in front. So, our last meeting, we talked about the peri-urban issue, especially in Kaimatera Road, and the Rural Board Committee sort of endorsed the proposal of an unofficial site that I'm sort of loath to mention where it is in case it goes public, but it is somewhere up Longacre Road. That has actually worked. So Kaimatera Road in general has not had any level of illegal dumping that it was prone to. We had to, when we were initiating this initiative, we had to make sure that we followed up with everything that would make that work, and that included daily inspections for the first 6 weeks, checking on the bags that are actually dropped off at the unofficial site, There were bags that didn't have stickers, so there was a bit of an education piece to that and trying to find the owners of those and then contacting them. But in general, everybody has actually complied with bags of some sort. So we have, that started off on the 9th of January, and we're June 12th now. And whilst we'll keep on monitoring it, we're quite happy with how that's actually going. We do send letters of updates out to the residents of Longacre Road. They are the key for making this work. And for example, there was a couple of occasions where bags would, the site is based on a drop-off and a pick-up on the same day. But we did have some cases of bags turning up a little bit early, and what that would do was probably catch the attention of people driving by, which could actually lead to the discovery of where that artificial site is. For the rural bins contract, we were still negotiating with the contractor, and that has been passed on to Waste Management New Zealand. They are currently out there rolling out the bins up River Road right now, the replacement bins. They're long overdue. In fact, the replacements that they had been using were quite inferior and prone to the floors busting. So it's really, really pleasing that that's going out there. And they have made a mistake with the colour of bins, and that's being remedied right now. So the ones up River Road have a forest green. That will be replaced in due course. We have our problem sites, mainly Ngāturi, Kawapara Road and Te Hui Road. CCTV is not existent in Te Hui Road, so it's very, very hard to monitor. Kawapara Road is hard to get access to the footage. We've had to go through the rural policemen to provide that, and we have been fortunate enough to catch some vehicles, but we don't monitor it every day. We can only go up there as the litter team goes up to inspect to make sure the accesses are clear, and that's when they discover. We try and trace back. It's not an easy thing to do. Ngāturi, we're actually pleased with it. We're monitoring that daily with the CCTV. And that seems to be working. We can intercept anything that, if there's starting to be a bit of a pile up, we can go up either that day or the next day and actually clear that access. We do find that there's a problem with, there's a lot of air in the bins, so when people place their bags or their contents in the bins, it's not really getting packed down. So when they don't get packed down, it leaves up a sort of a big pile, and then it sort of attracts people to go, right, we'll put them onto the side or at the front. So we're just hoping that we can send a letter out to residents who do have these rural bin sites to help sort of educate and help us, and sort of how the, I guess it's the purpose of the service. One is it's really meant for the householders who live in that particular area. So we'd like to see, I guess, any behaviours of illegal activity passed on to us. But to get infringements, we need evidence. If we can get photos, if we can get some sort of description of who these people are, I think anybody driving up with a trailer and there's got a lot of stuff on it, I think that's going to sort of should actually send some alarm bells, because we sort of feel that what's acceptable is household rubbish for that particular week, because the bins themselves are emptied weekly. We sort of feel that if there's 32 households up a certain road, there probably should be 64 at the end of the week. But what we're finding is they're far more than that.
I'd make a couple of comments about the Ngāturi one. I'd like to see the signage
Yes.
a bit better. Something along the lines, if the sign makes it quite clear that you do not put any rubbish on the ground. And then if you've got your CCTV camera picks up somebody dumping something on the ground, then clearly it's out of specification.
Yep.
At the moment, the sign it's there, but it's not very clear and it's not well positioned. I did discuss this with Stuart quite a while ago, and I thought something was going to happen there, but so that would be my suggestion for that one. And the other suggestion I'd have for Ngāturi is that if you do have see a trailer load being unloaded there, and you can't get the number plate, then we need to organise access for you for the Wiley's Bridge camera, which is got the capability of day and nighttime number plates. So if you want to do some serious chasing up, the technology is available.
Yeah. The signs has actually been an item just recently at one of our meetings, and they do need a refresh. Moving on to some of the other things, what we've been working on. Brunswick site is hugely problematic, and we've been working with the Brunswick School on a different topic, which is a recycling centre, and it's something that they're keen on following up. So we're looking at doing something like that as a pilot, as a trial, to see if that's actually something that will be utilised. We also need to arrange a community meeting with the Brunswick community about coming up with a solution that's that can be owned by the community of what to do with this problem with the illegal dumping that's actually at the Brunswick site. It is a health and safety hazard for the contractor. And we have, it has been socialised, I guess, unofficially, and it hasn't been that popular as in regards to where the site should be. The common theme is there's a lot that don't want it up in their area if we were to move it up to another site. So I think having the community voice their concerns and discuss what they think should happen is the step forward, rather than we dictating what that is. I think that was it for me. I'll get Ross to talk on what he's discovered on his rounds.
Kia ora. So what we're experiencing out on the rounds, sort of, I won't say day to day because we're not out there every single day, but we do try to get out as often as possible and have a look at these rural sites. A lot of non-household waste. These bins are for household waste, but we're finding wood, grass, branches, old fences, dog houses. And I do reiterate to people when I see them that they are for household waste only. An example is Karapoa Road. We did witness a person attempting to drop off a couch. I caught up with him and reiterated that it is for household waste and not couches and fridges and freezers, and he was pretty good about it. We've had a few of those instances. Big one for me is sort of educating people that are out there. As John said before, there's a lot of air in the bin, a lot of things not broken down. We've found beds, couches, mattresses, and a lot of items that can be recycled, such as bottles, glass bottles and plastic. There is also people that we believe are coming in from town to dump there. We are aware of a couple of vehicles that are suspected of this, however, yet to gain evidence on them doing so. For this, I believe personally that the community is the solution. They can report by calling up the council and providing pictures of offenders that are not local. We do need pictures or video of a person dumping, and ideally a number plate in order to contact them, so a fine can be issued. And we are essentially only one team. We do service the region, so we can't just be out at any particular site waiting to see something. Some of the sites, as John said, do have cameras and others don't. Some positives about the sites: the rural bins do actually help in a big way. They contain the fly tipping. For instance, without the bins, I would expect there'd be a lot more dumping in random and hard to reach places, such as drains, paddocks and waterways. As frustrating as it is for some, they do help minimise the fly tipping in that aspect. Ways that locals can help: report using SnapSend Solve, calling up council, taking pictures. Even if we don't have enough to issue a fine, we'll still be able to keep track of suspected fly tippers and build a picture of when they're doing it. Another one is not dumping in front of the bins or adding to the pile. When there is dumping happening in front of the bins, the truck's unable to access and may not be able to uplift them. This also happens if the bins are too heavy, and that will create more issues if that happens.
Does that Snap, Send and Solve app, are you still using that?
Can you say that again, please?
There was an app that council were using called Snap, Send and Solve. You take a photo and push the button and it heads off to council. And
Yes.
Council have more gone towards Anteno, but we do receive the odd Snap, Send and Solve, and we will respond to that.
so you still respond to those ones? Yeah. Okay. There was some. We had a brief discussion before the meeting. I think there were some questions that board members wanted to ask. Is that right? Did anyone?
I've got a question anyway.
Oh,
Is there any enforcement happening? You say do you issue fines, or who issues the fines?
Anything that we gather goes to our compliance team, and they issue the infringements. They follow it up. They'll either phone or meet the person. And we're usually quite confident when we've got something with the evidence that we're about to present. Compliance will also give warnings. If we can't outright prove, but we're 90% sure, and I think that has helped deter.
Kia ora, John. Yeah, well, I'd certainly like to see one good public something lesson as an example, because we're not seeing anything. We're hearing of dumpers everywhere around Whanganui, but when was the last time we ever saw any action or any enforcement? So I think that would be a major.
That's a good point to advertise it.
Yep. Thank you, John.
Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions on Brunswick, and that I happen to go past there on a fairly regular basis, and there's been whiteware. You're right, whiteware and beds and all sorts of stuff. The first question, do you have a camera there? Is there a camera at Brunswick? There was? Gotcha. So there's nothing there at the moment? Okay. So the other part of the question is that if I've went to the back roads of Brunswick and found out that all of the people that really like that are the guys, Steve Rainey's and co's and the Grant de Rolls is right at the Tokomari end for their bag drop-off, which is really good. They are fearful that if it goes, it won't happen and it'll be taken away altogether. So I suppose my question is that, and a lot of people say it probably should shift because it is too close to town, because people can drive out from town. And there's actually one guy on Luskin Road that will tell you that there's a black van that goes past every week out there and comes back again. And he's followed it once and does go to the dump. The other thing about the public ringing up, I did hear recently if somebody did call in and say, hey, what are you dumping that for? And then got chased away. So I suspect he won't go there again. The problem is that if I fronted up and said, what do you think you're doing? That a 72-foot tall guy would get out of a truck and tell me to go somewhere else. So that's always a challenge as well. So I think though, for the Brunswick people around, yes, the school is doing some work. I don't know that that's going to achieve too much for them though.
But if you have a camera that's working, and it doesn't matter where it is, it actually has to work, and you have to use it, otherwise it's a waste of time. I think somebody said, Stu might have said there's somebody that once said, oh, it's just a dummy camera, and I thought, well, what's the point of having a dummy camera? It doesn't do anything. But I know people would like to see something happen. It is probably one of your worst ones. You're right, people dump on the outside. I've seen people back up their utes and just dump stuff off over the gate. It's just something that there is a concern. And I think now there's about 12 houses that probably have a rat infestation. That's probably coming from the dump, because they didn't have it before. And if it doesn't get cleared, that seems to be what the issue is. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Ross, we need to keep moving. We've got one other change.
Yeah, I've got one question, Chair. In your report, you state that in the rural area, generally, the majority of bin site servers have little to no issues. There are 3 sites of interest. I'm not going to name them. I'm not going to put any focus on it. Regarding the Brunswick potential meeting with residents, may I suggest that all members of the Rural Board, if it's appropriate, receive an invitation to attend, including the 2 council reps. That way we can see whether I know we have a rural member who will get the invitation, but I'm just wondering whether, if it goes to all of us, we can show our enthusiasm and support for the locals looking at a solution up there. Would that be appropriate?
More than appropriate.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah. And just a quick comment. Thank you for your report as well, Ross. Things are really going forward under your role. It's noticeable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. I'll just make one comment. You mentioned with the Ngāturi site that you had all this wall packs full of rubbish. If you'd contacted any member of the Whanganui community, they could have told you exactly where that came from and exactly who you should go and talk to about it. So just keep that in mind. If something like that happens, just get on to somebody from the community. And most communities are actually represented around here, so that's a good starting point. So one other thing, the rubbish is going to come up a lot. We've got the recycling. Rob Vinson wants to start getting something back from the rural community for providing the service. So I think we're going to be seeing you. Hopefully you'll be able to come and see us quite often. And thank you very much for this report. It's excellent. Okay, so I'll now I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that the Whanganui Rural Community Board receive the update report on rural waste collection sites and illegal dumping. So Michael and Brian. So we've had a discussion, so I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you very much. So item 6.6, Tim. Thank you. This item was dreamt up last Tuesday when Tim came along to our chairs briefing, and we suddenly realised that there was a bit of scope here, and so that's the basis of the report that Tim's given us today.
Yes, so ladies and gentlemen, thanks for seeing me. I'll take it that you've read the proposal, but to summarise it effectively, what I'm looking at doing is creating a surge communication capacity specifically for our rural areas. If you think back to Cyclone Gabrielle, the ability, or trying to get the ability to surge in effective satellite communication systems to areas we know are going to be cut off and are going to lose their normal communications capability, is something we currently don't have. We'd be relying on outside organisations to provide that, and what we saw in recent events in other places was that can take some days to organise. We had a great deal of experience with Anthony Edwards deploying to Wairoa very early on in Cyclone Gabrielle and taking our current Starlink system into the town and basically helping them re-establish communications to the point where I was able to track a lot of the work that he and his team were doing from here at Whanganui. live. A lot of our systems that we currently use are based on that ability to share information to and from the community and our responders. Satellite communications generally for us is a backup system, but technology has moved on and now it's a lot simpler. And with these systems like these, we can provide that rapid communication in both directions to an area that's lost all other means of communications. Ideally, if I put that for when the next cyclone comes, is we would surge some of these packages into areas we know are likely to be affected, but not all of them. And then after the impacts have occurred, we identify where we don't have communications, and that's where we'll be using helicopters or other transportation to drop packages in there, so we then gain situational awareness of what's going on in there and communications with that isolated population. That's the ideal that we're after. I'm aware there's a number of these systems out there, but in this line of work, you take nothing for granted. The flexibility of being able to say, okay, where haven't we heard? We need to be able to adapt and move a system over there. And that may change with every event, and that's what we're looking for. With this idea is also training people up in those communities and those locations to use these systems and to use the associated software that we use for information sharing. It is some of the rural communities and some of the rural schools actually that we've worked with when we developed our IT systems in civil defence here in Whanganui. And I have seen children at least one of our rural schools within 30 minutes practicing online, organising evacuations, situational awareness, what we call common operating picture tools, and welfare support in exercises. And these are 12-year-olds. And it works incredibly well using systems like Starlink. And so my application really is to seek some funding to help build a number of these packages that we can then hold in stock to support our rural community in this way.
Thank you, Tim. We'll take the report as read. And okay, right, yeah, I'll ask. That's a good idea. We'll have a mover and a seconder, please. Peter's moved.
Second.
Judd seconded. Okay, so questions of Tim and comments.
Tim, do you envisage these being live in terms of subscription, or can you liven them up at the time that they're first used?
The latter. We have one that I keep live. I pay for open subscription, our current operational unit. The system that I'm going for is one that we buy in and then we put to sleep, so we don't pay a subscription and we activate it. It's a rural mobile one that's designed for use with motorhomes, etc. So you turn it on when you need it, you pay for that month, and when you no longer need it, you turn it off.
Peter?
This scheme seems, well, the option one is for 4, seems eminently logical and sensible, and I'm surprised that the council itself didn't, because it says in the report that they did one but not enough. So as the Rural Community Board, I'm happy to endorse this and hope it all goes through.
Thank you. I am aiming for, in the next coming financial year, for packages for particularly the urban, our welfare response capability, and our civil defence centres aligned with this.
Ross?
You just said what I was going to ask. Thank you.
Certainly with the inquiry from the Gabrielle situation, the communications came out as the biggest issue. And it's concerned me that we don't seem to have a plan here, although our Inspire system's probably pretty durable. So that was the...
need electricity. You haven't got electricity, you've got nothing. And
correct.
This supplies its
Yep.
own electricity.
Okay, so the basis of the discussion was that... Did you want to say something, Ross?
I'm sorry. Half it was answered and then the other half just popped into my little head.
That's all
sorry.
right. No, wait, go.
May I ask Tim, should this go through and you purchase up to those Starlink systems, would there likely be some form of communication through press or media or our Facebook to let our rural communities know how we are preparing ourselves better than the East Coast was during Cyclone Gabriel, that how this is going to make a difference? Can we pre-warn them that, or pre-advise them that this is how we're working through this?
Without the comparison with other areas, simply yes. If you engage with the community, you train with the community alongside them, it becomes their asset, and them knowing about it beforehand makes it work. Particularly identifying people in those communities that we can target that towards, so their neighbours know where to go.
So we might look at some sort of comms going out.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We've got some more work to do in that area anyway, so it'll be ongoing. Brian?
Just a question is that if this is CDEM is so important to the rural community and to the city, whereabouts of the council is sitting with this? That this should not be funded through council?
Well, my argument would be that effectively it is. This 15,000 that we've got has come from the ratepayer. And so I was just going to get onto that.
We could spend all our money before we get there.
We've got about 10,000 of it left. It does not roll over.
Mr. Chair, I think Tim knows how much we've got left.
I was not here for that discussion. Well, I was here for some of it.
This didn't just happen. There was a little bit there has been some discussions, which is why we've got this in front of us.
On that basis, can we have a point of clarification in terms of what we, after today's decisions, how much we actually do have available for this month?
I think it's 10,000.
After today's, we've just approved 6,300, 4,300 for Graham plus GST.
Yeah, no, but we knew all this was coming.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
So and we've got the figures here. So yes, of our $15,000 annual grant, we have about 10,000 of it still available and it runs out at the end of June. It gets topped up to whatever's left. It only gets topped up to 15,000. The balance does not carry over. This seemed to me to be a good way of allocating that money for something that I think we do need. 10,511. Oh, sorry, Anna.
I believe that once these decisions are made today, the Rural Grant Fund will be close to being exhausted for the 2023-2024 term, noting that we're about to roll into the next financial year, if that offers any clarity.
Ross?
So my understanding of that resolution is in red, that we can't give Tim the full figure of all the items, but we're saying use the remaining budget for the purposes of the 4 Starlinks separate to the other items. That's why we can't give a definitive figure of his request versus what our reality is. So after today, our account would be, and then we start afresh in July. Okay.
Yep, we've got 3 weeks where we can't spend a cent. Brian?
Just reiterating what Ross said, and I think if we're going to go public and tell everybody that this has been done, I think we should make sure that they actually know that it's the Rural Community Board that's done it.
That is the, yes.
Well, specifically,
yes.
I'm not saying you two boys aren't involved, but...
No, well, he's on the Rural Community Board, whether he likes it or not.
That's Chair, with respect to the Rural Community Board elected members, the reason I said it is because I believe the Rural and Community Board darn well deserves a higher profile, and if one of those ways is through this emergency disaster relief support, perfect comms should go out to our public, both rural and urban.
Thank you for those comments, and thank you for your presentation, Tim. So I shall now, well, the recommendation is up there. We have a mover and a seconder, so I'm now going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against?
Actually, Chair, could you read, for the benefit of those on camera, can you read it out?
Okay. that the Whanganui Rural Community Board use the remaining budget of the 23-24 Rural Community Grant Fund to purchase up to 4 Starlink satellite systems with carry cases and independent power sources for utilisation in support of civil defence, rural emergency response and recovery activities. All in favour? Against? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. So that's the end of today's agenda. So I will invite Judd to close the meeting with a karakia.
Kia ora tātou, karakia. Karakia. Unuhia. Kia uru te tapa nui. Kia wate, kia mama te nākau, te tinana. Te wairua i te ara takatu, koia rā e rongo waka irahira ake ki runga. Kia wate, ai rā, kua wate, hau pai Mārie. Release us from the mantle of this meeting so that we can stand free. Clear in heart, spirit and body. Make it happen. Peace may reign free. Kia ora tātou.